Brea Lassek here for NNN Sports, gearing up for baseball season. Last year wasn't exactly picture perfect for the Wildcats, just a 10-win season and some off-season turmoil as well. But the good thing for this year is everything is new. That's kind of the key word. 18 newcomers on this squad. And the good thing for the guy sitting next to me is they're all new to him because this is first-year head coach Ben Greenspan. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thanks for having me, Brea.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this team, but first off, just how are you and the family adjusting to Evanston?
We're great. We love it. We bought a house about 3 blocks north of the field. And so, you know, as a coach, you're always trying to balance that family and work dynamic. And luckily, we're able to find a house close enough that allows us to merge the two. And, you know, something as simple as yesterday, my son's out shagging in the outfield during batting practice. And so family's adjusting. We're able to involve, you know, I preach to the guys all the time about the importance of family, the importance of relationships. We need to live that as well as coaches. And I think it's valuable for them to see me as a husband and a father in some roles other than coach. And so adjusting to Evanston has been great because I've been able to merge the two pretty successfully so far.
I think that speaks a little bit to the culture that you're trying to build here. Last season, again, like I alluded to, some off-season turmoil with the previous head coach. Coming in, it's a tough spot to be at, both academically with the history of the program not being too successful in the last 2 decades. So I'm wondering, why did you decide to make the move to Evanston, make your head coaching debut here with Northwestern?
I think it's an unbelievable opportunity, personally. I do. I've played in the Big Ten. I've coached at a couple institutions, other institutions in the Big Ten. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the league. I think the Big Ten values athletics to the point of they provide the resources for you to be successful and competitive on a national level, in addition to maintaining high academic standards. So it's a good balance for me. I wanted to be in the Big Ten. I think it's a tremendous opportunity at a place that has a great city, a great institution, a great ballpark. I think there's a lot of reasons why you can have success here, and that's what we're focused on, is look at all the great reasons kids want to come here, kids want to play here, kids want this education, they want to be in Chicago. So I felt like it was an opportunity to really build something special.
Coming into the fall, how did you go about earning guys' trust?
I think that's a good question. I think it's something you try and do every day. I don't think there is like this big aha moment, you know, that, okay, now I trust you because you did this or you said this. I think it is consistency. I think it is showing that you care about them as a person in addition to a player. It is letting them see you, like I said prior, in roles other than just coach. But I think it's also establishing standards for a program, clearly defining those standards, and then me living up to those standards and our coaching staff living up to those standards. And I think you earn trust when you do that time and time again.
Yeah, clearly marking those standards. In one of your first meetings of the year, the players said that you had them write down all the areas that they wanted to focus on, maybe in the community, in the classroom, on and off the field. What were some of those things that guys wrote down?
There was a lot of overlap. I think things that overlap in community and classroom, on the field, things such as, you know, something as simple as respecting others. How do you do that? Things as simple as understanding and having some perspective that the program is bigger than any one individual. You know, respecting the players that played here before us and what have they done, respecting the institution and the academics, blending athlete with student and how can we do that most effectively, engaging with youth. I mean, a bunch of different areas where we really tried to hone in on, you know, how do we want to be perceived when someone meets a Northwestern baseball player? What do we want them to walk away from that conversation saying, wow, he's this, or that program must be this. So being intentional about how you're perceived, how you present yourself, how you represent the program, and then also what are we doing actively in each one of those different arenas to make sure that we're building what we want to build.
Is there one player that you think has embodied that the most so far?
I think there are several. I think Tyler Gannis is probably the one newcomer that has really separated himself in terms of a leadership role. I think he has a unique blend of, he's new, but he's also a senior. And I think that can be a really difficult dynamic at times. And how he's navigated that has been really impressive to me. I think sometimes guys come in as a senior, they try and lead, and other seniors might say, hey, you haven't been here, you don't know what this place is about. And he listens and he asks questions. I think he's a really effective leader because he lives it every day. He treats people the right way. He has great perspective. He comes from a good program, and he cares about the other teammates and wants to win.
Yeah, like you said, coming from a very good program, Oregon has made the postseason in the last couple of years, so he has some of that experience. How big is that, having someone in the locker room that has experienced that, and maybe just give a little bit more insight to who he is as a player on the field?
I think his style of play embodies the ultimate team player. He's willing to get hit with a pitch if that means him getting onto first base. He's willing to walk if he doesn't get a pitch to hit. If there's a big play, he's going to be excited, and you're going to feel his energy. When you play against players, I think sometimes it's like, wow, I felt that guy's presence on the field. And when I coach our team and we go through a fall, I could feel Tyler no matter where he was. I felt his presence, communication, energy, picking up a teammate, especially positive energy in a game that's built around failure. His positive energy is really impactful to our club too.
Wow, that's some really high compliments for him. Like you said, he's a senior. I want to focus on some of these seniors that have been here since their freshman year. Guys like Tony Livermore, Vince Bianchina, Kellen Pate. They've had a new head coach every year that they've played college baseball, which is a very unique experience. Talk to me a little bit about their leadership and what they've meant to the program.
Yeah, I think all different styles of leadership when you're talking about those guys. And I think when guys lead, the most important thing is that it's sincere and they're themselves. Don't try and be something you're not. The other part of it is, are you doing everything that gives you the foundation to lead someone else? If you're not doing everything yourself, it's easy for someone else to say, well, you're not doing that. And that's what I really respect about those guys. Tony's leadership style is a little bit different than Vince's. Vince is super intense, and he's a in-your-face type of guy. And Tony's hey, I'm going to lead by example, and I'm not going to get in your face, but you're going to know that this is really important to me. Kellen's a little bit unique just because of on the pitching side, and he's been battling through some injuries. So his ability to really lead on the field has probably not been as significant as Tony and Vince. But going back to what you said about 4 different coaches in 4 years, I'm so grateful for those guys to how they've embraced our coaching staff. I feel like they have really embodied what we've tried to preach. And they've taken ownership of the team, and that's something that I think most teams always have. Is good teams are usually player-led, and I think those guys really want to lead these teams in their own respective style.
We'll get back to the players in a second, but I want to talk about someone who's led you throughout your career, Tracy Smith. I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to him a little bit as well. He told me that you're one of the most detail-oriented persons that he knows. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think details are important. I do. I think attention to detail is very important. First, I have so much respect for him. He gave me an opportunity when I probably wasn't ready for the opportunity. And I'm forever grateful for the mentorship, the way that he has guided me over the course of my career. I owe more to him professionally than maybe anybody else. And so thankful that we crossed paths, thankful for the opportunities that he allowed me to have. Yeah, I think the details, going back to your question, I think details matter. I do. I think being buttoned up as a program matters. I think that pertains to everything within your program, to recruiting, to player development, to scouting your opposition, to what does the field look like. I think attention to detail really matters.
You've been around Tracy's programs, Arizona State, Michigan. You've been with him for a lot of his career. What's something that you've taken away from how he runs his programs?
Oh, so many things. Good question. I would say take your job seriously, don't take yourself too seriously. Develop real relationships with players. Like you want to motivate, you better know what makes that guy tick. I think he's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around, and I think that's infectious in the team. And you feel that when you're around him. And the teams that I feel like we built and had the most success with were like-minded individuals that were also elite competitors. And I think he fed into that.
Yeah, you mentioned a key word there that goes into my next question, building. You were in charge of recruiting at Michigan, and that's kind of one of your specialties, improving those classes 50-plus spots in the time that you were there. I'm wondering, what's your recruiting philosophy? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking at players?
I think it's several different things. I think you're trying to find, you want to surround yourself with people you want to work with every day. And so not necessarily the same personality type of every recruit, but you want to surround yourself with people that are important, that share the same values and morals that you do. I don't want to coach effort. I want to coach guys that have a high motor and are go-getters. I look for, is it the quality of person? Is it the quality of family? Do they represent the same things that I'm trying to instill in the program? If so, then that part of it's usually a little bit easier. I think you always, as you're talking about the players, tools matter. I think you hope that a player that you're bringing into the program has at least one carrying tool that, hey, we might have to develop him on the offensive side, but he can really go play shortstop. Or it's elite breaking ball and the fastball is only 86, but we know we can go to this guy in a breaking ball situation right away. So is there a carrying tool? What is the opportunity to develop the other tools? But as a person, I think your ability to develop someone goes back to what is the person? Does that person want to be developed? Do they want to be coached? Do they value the same things that you do? And then are they willing to put in the work to realize their potential? And those are the things you're trying to identify early on.
You talked about it before at Northwestern. You have a unique opportunity with academics. That's a big recruiting draw to get those guys in, but it can also be a challenge to overcome, especially in the college baseball landscape, just thinking of one example, JUCO guys are huge in development. It's really hard to get a JUCO guy to Northwestern. I think I saw one on the roster, but that's the first time in years that has happened. So I guess, how do you plan to navigate Northwestern's unique challenges with academics in recruiting?
I think if you look at college baseball and the landscape of college baseball, yes, junior college baseball is impactful in recruiting, but there's also been a blueprint of very successful programs that maybe didn't have a track record of success until recently that have turned it over and turned it around. And it's not hard to look at Vanderbilt. It's not hard to look at Duke. Wake had a little bit more traditional success than those two programs, but Vanderbilt, Duke, I think when you look at those types of programs, and you can draw some similarities to Northwestern. It is an elite academic institution in a great city, and they have the right people. And so while the academics, you can choose to look at it one of two ways. You can say, this is a negative because we can't get as many guys in, or this is a positive because those elite students are going to be drawn to our institution. And the academics are a huge part of what makes Northwestern special. So how do we embrace that and recruit guys that value that? I think it's a great opportunity, more so than it is a challenge in being prohibitive in recruiting.
On the topic of recruiting, I just want to take a look at your staff a little bit. You added Coach Tyler Rost, Coach Ben Kaiser. What really interested you in them?
Two things, or I'd say with both of them. They both have been at similar institutions. Tyler coached at Duke, which, as I said before, it's like that's the blueprint. That's a program that hadn't had some of the success historically, that has turned it around and become a power. And so I feel like Tyler has a good understanding of the types of kids that have been successful at Duke and how do we connect with that type of kid here. I think Tyler brings a unique skill set of enough old school coaching with new school data. And I think Northwestern student athletes can handle some data. And so, and that's important in recruiting. And so I feel like he's done a tremendous job of blending data with the old school coaching, comes from a like-minded institution with similar experiences. Ben Kaiser, similar institution in terms of played at the University of Michigan, played in the Yankees organization. He has an infectious personality. He's an elite competitor. He's passionate. He is, if you look at both of those guys, I think they're relatively young in their coaching career, but they're the right people. And I go back to, you asked me about Tracy Smith. Tracy Smith hired me when I had way less experience than either one of those two do. And I was put into a position at Indiana, and he said, you know what, I'm going to get the right person. That's more important to me than the longest resume. And I feel like I got the right people in those roles, first and foremost. And as we grow this program, I'm going to make mistakes as a first-time head coach. I know that. They're going to make mistakes as younger assistant coaches, but we're going to grow together, and it won't be mistakes of a lack of preparation. It won't be mistakes of not caring enough, a lack of energy. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be high energy guys that really care about the development of the individual and the collective group.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up the analytics part, because that was something that I wanted to touch on. You mentioned a very young staff, and analytics are starting to become even a bigger part of the game. You have such a wide spectrum in college baseball, from the old school approach to everything that Wake Forest is doing with the pitching lab. I'm wondering, where does your staff fall in that spectrum? How much do you weigh in on analytics versus just the traditional eye test?
I think it's a blend. It has to be a blend. I don't think it's you're all one or all the other. I think certain players, I think if you ignore data, you're a fool. Like, I think if the data tells you this is what it is, I think you use it as a tool to help coach or develop your guys. If you solely teach off the data and you don't have awareness of the individual or the game circumstances, then I think you're missing the boat there too. So I think it's truly a blend. I think blending some of the TrackMan data with some video, it's a teaching tool to show a guy, this is, whether it's a pitcher, this is what your ball is doing, therefore this is how we're going to call a game. Or it's a hitter and it's awareness of swing decisions, or your swing plays better in this zone than this zone. So how do we get your approach to tailor what your swing does for you to be successful? And I think that's where you utilize the data the most. It's player development, it's approach-based, but you have to have an awareness of the game. In addition, it can't be all one or all the other. Shifting
now to some of those players, we'll start out with pitching a little bit. I'm not sure you're going to answer this question. I've already prepared that. But how's your rotation shaping up? What can you tell me about who might be starting this weekend?
I think we have a handful of guys that are going to get the most impactful innings. And, I think when you look at some of the returners, you have Nolan Moore, you have Luke Beneke, you have Matt McClure, you have Garrett Shearer, and you have Jack Dyke. And I think of that kind of core as like, based on our staff, it's going to be a challenge of, are we going to line up and do the traditional, this is Friday, this is Saturday, this is Sunday, this is righty matchup, this is lefty matchup, this is closer, this is setup man. I don't think that we're going to be the most traditional staff in terms of roles. So sometimes it might be this guy goes 5, this guy goes 4. Sometimes it might be this guy goes 5, and then it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I think those guys have separated themselves in a way early on as guys that are going to handle a lot of the innings. I think there's some other guys that are in the mix too. Amar Sengag has thrown really, really well lately. Drew Dixon has thrown very well this spring. So I think there's some guys in there that are going to get the ball in critical innings. I think as a coach, you're trying to manage, okay, you can lose a game in the first, but you can also lose a game in the ninth. So how do we cover our bases effectively as possible to be good here and good here?
There's one name that you mentioned in there that I want to touch on. Nolan Moore. He had an ERA of over 12 last season, but then he goes to the Cape League, faces some of the best players in college baseball, and posts a sub-2 ERA. Very two different tales there. So just talk a little bit about his development, maybe introduce us to his stuff, and just who he is as a pitcher.
Yeah, he's, first and foremost, he's a strike thrower, which you value. At least, this fall, this spring for us, he was in the zone a ton. I watch Northwestern basketball, and it's been a fun team to follow. And if you watch Boo Buie, he's not afraid to take a shot late in the game. And I look at Nolan Moore, and he's not afraid to throw multiple pitches in the zone. And sometimes the guy might get him because it's not the guy that's blowing 95. He's going to throw low to mid 80s with a really good changeup, with a good breaking ball, and very arm slots. Like Boo, he's not afraid to throw strikes, in a fear of someone might hit it. And I think that's what I value about him. He's competitive, he wants the ball, and he throws strikes. And he's left-handed, and it gives him an ability to control the running game. So, he does a lot of things that you're looking for. Is it the traditional stuff guy? No. But you can win and you can be successful without being a huge stuff guy too. And that's what he is.
Yeah, it's the stuff versus pitchability factor there. Who are some of those other guys that have a really good pitchability factor?
I'd say Garrett Shearer has separated himself. Multiple pitches for strikes. He's a good blend of stuff and strikes. I think he has a high-level mindset as a freshman, as someone that's coming in and has separated himself to get the ball in some critical spots. Luke Beneke has thrown really well too. His continued development. He pitched a lot last year and is going to get the ball a lot. He's thrown a lot of strikes and really good changeup and good breaking ball. And and the other one I'd probably say is Matt McClure, is a guy that I'm excited to see what he does this weekend. I think he's got a chance to have some success this year, and he's earned it. He works.
There's one more pitcher that I want to touch on. Jack Dyke. He was hurt for a little bit of his career, especially last season, and came back. Talk to me about how he's doing and what you expect from him this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to get the ball in critical innings too. I think I think it's going to be situational based. Like, okay, is this guy the matchup against this part of the order? And the one thing I'd say about Jack is that I trust Jack. Like, I trust him. When I put him in the game, I feel like I know what you're going to get. And that's reassuring. And, if you don't know what you're going to get, sometimes you're more hesitant to put someone into the game in a critical spot. I know what we're going to get out of Jack. At least I think I know what we're going to get out of Jack. And I'm going to trust. When he toes the rubber, he's going to compete. He's going to throw strikes. He's going to control the running game. He's going to field his position. He's going to do the things, those controllable aspects of pitching. I feel like he's going to do that. I think he's tried to, elevate himself as a leader in the program, and I really respect what he's done in that regard. I think he's going to be one of our key cogs over the course of the season. I think he's going to pitch a lot for us.
And then talking about the other half of the battery, what's your catching situation looking like? Cooper Ford had graduated last year, and then obviously Alex Calarco leaving as well. So what's the situation there?
Yeah, for me right now, it's two guys are probably getting the bulk of the playing time, Lorenzo Rios and Bennett Markinson. Those two are different style catchers. Bennett right now has had a little bit more success offensively, but both good makeup, hard workers. Both have presence back there, which I really value. I think that's going to be one of those early season battles in a way. They're not battling against each other, but it's going to be a challenge for us. I think your team, like, what are we going to be March 16th versus February 16th? I think we'll have a lot more answers about our team a month from now than maybe we have right now. Both of those guys are going to play. Both of those guys are going to get at bats. So I think they're both going to be getting starts, that first weekend, and we're going to continue to evaluate as we get into the season a little bit more.
Shifting now offensively, like I mentioned, Cooper Ford leaving, as well as Kevin Ferrer, and then Calarco and Steven Rustich switched spots with you. They made up a lot of your production, especially power-wise. Who do you expect to take over that production?
Yeah, I think, you have a couple newcomers that I think will be in the lineup a lot. Jackson Freeman, Griffin Mills are two freshmen that I think will both play significant innings for us and get a lot of at-bats. Both of those guys had good falls and good springs that they've put themselves in a position that they're gonna get some at-bats early on. I think you're always trying to develop the guys within your program too. And so, yeah, we did lose some guys that put up some good numbers last year, but I'm excited to see some guys. Owen McElpatrick, I think he has a chance to really make a big jump this year. He's had a really good fall and a good spring. Trent Leolis is another guy that I think has a chance to make a big jump this spring. Tyler Gannis will get some critical at bats. Probably hit at the top of the order. Vince, I hope. Tony, I hope. Those two guys hopefully solidified either the top or the middle of the order. Do I think they're going to hit 20 homers? No, but I don't think that we necessarily need them to. We need them to grind out at bats, timely hitting, steal some bases, that type of stuff.
You alluded to it there at the end, but what is your offensive identity that you're hoping to develop? Last year, the answer to that was playing a little small ball, but of course it's hard to do that when you get behind early. So what's the offense looking like?
I think you want to be multidimensional where you can exploit a team's weakness. You have the skill set to exploit a team's inability to field a bunt, or you have the ability to hit a double when you need to hit a double. I think your offensive identity is, it's not for me to just say this is what we are and you guys need to do this. To me, it's my job as a coach to say this is our personnel, this is what we're able to do to be successful. How do we put these guys in the most positions to be successful? If it's a guy that can really handle the bat, he's probably a hit and run guy. I love to hit and run. If he has a lot of swing and miss, it's tougher to be a hit and run guy. You better be able to get a bunt down if we need to be able to get a bunt down or put pressure on the defense. I don't think that we're going to be a team that's going to go out and hit 150 homers. I don't see that with this group. So I think the game will kind of dictate the style of play. Friday night might be different than a Sunday. Wind blowing in versus wind blowing out. I think you want to be well equipped to handle conditions, situations of the game, and your opponent.
Yeah, wrapping up here, I have a couple more questions. I watched the foundation video this morning that was published on you guys, and there was a lot of high praise in there from the players of you and the culture that you're building. And one key motto that was kept being repeated in there was learning to not lose before you win. Could you just explain what that means to you?
I think it's controlling the controllable stuff. And what that means is, do we throw strikes? Do we play defense? I think so often games are lost not because of the big 3-run homer, but because it's a walk, an error, and then that 3-run homer. So I think it's doing the fundamentals of the game soundly to put yourself in a position to win a game. And those to me are, do you throw strikes? Do you play defense? Do you put balls in play? Do Do you put pressure on the defense? Those are the controllable things that I think you have to, like successful teams do that. You put yourself in a position to get that 3-run homer. You know, maybe you're grinding out at bats and you're willing to get hit like a Tyler Gannis and you're willing to take a walk and then the timely hit comes. That you want to exploit teams that don't do those things. So in order to win, I think you need to do those things successfully to put yourself in a position to win a game.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me from this conversation is just the culture that you're trying to build, especially right when the players come in development-wise. This program, like I've said, has kind of struggled in the past 2 decades or so. What are the expectations for this season? What is reasonable for this team?
Yeah, honestly, I'm probably overly process-oriented. Like, let's become the best version of ourselves, individually and collectively. And how do we do that? It's the everyday actions. It's putting your head down and working at the level that we need to work to maximize our potential. And I don't want to limit what I think this team could be yet, because we don't know yet. And so I'm honestly probably more focused on how do we build a culture? How do we establish an identity? How do we get the most out of every player we have? And then how do we play? How do we perform against the opposition when you get your opportunities?
Well, thank you so much, Coach. I really
you.
appreciate the conversation.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.